Jeanine, amazing to have you on the podcast. I'm excited to be talking to you. You are the co-founder and CEO of InceptionPoint.ai, a company that is focusing on producing AI-generated podcasts on scale. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit about what led you to actually launch this company, what led you into this field, and how did that all come about?
Sure. Yeah, actually, our core thesis is a bit broader than the way that you described it. And we're designing
Please correct me.
AI-generated personalities. Yes, we're designing AI-generated personalities and the AI-generated content that they release into the world. So they could be podcasters, they could be creators on social, they could be actors and actresses. So really multi-purpose. The desire is to design these AI-generated personalities and then build over time for them to have more and more autonomy so that they can create content the same way that today's storytellers create content. We started in podcasting for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, most of my team, that was our background. I previously built a company in the podcasting space. I co-founded a company called Simplecast. That's a podcasting infrastructure company. And we grew it and sold it to SiriusXM. And then I was at SiriusXM. I was the CFO of their ad tech division and their SVP of podcast strategy until Amazon recruited me over to be the COO of their podcasting division called Wondery. And after that, I decided that I'd spent a good amount of time with big, giant organizations and that my heart was truly in early stage companies and high growth companies. And so I was wanting to found something new again. And I got this like little team of folks that I had worked with previously together, and we were like jamming out, trying to find what our next idea was. And we're speed pitching each other ideas, all sorts of different kinds of ideas, pretty much everything in the AI space, because that's what we're excited about building with that new tech. But it was everything from, marketing, MarTech ideas to audio, to creator economy ideas, fintech. And in the middle of last year, in the midst of all of this, I got what I describe as the craziest email that I've ever received in my life. It was from somebody who used to be a customer of mine at my previous company at Simplecast. And he said, "Hey, you probably don't remember me, but I just took all of my LinkedIn contacts and I put them in AI and I asked AI who the CEO of my company should be. And it says you. And I think we should have lunch and talk about it." And that's the kind of email that you don't say no to. Now, there's very few emails that jump out of the stack like that one. So we went and had lunch. And as soon as he described to me this process that he had built for making AI-generated audio content, I was like, this is the future. This is this harnessing of this world's most powerful creative tool to enable people to tell stories and create in a whole new content medium was really exciting for me. And I came home and I immediately called these two other people that I'd been working with. And I was like, guys, like we found it. We need to jump on board with this team. And so we joined the team and it's been a mad dash ever since.
Was everyone aligned on the vision right away? The people that you called afterwards, were they immediately in, or did you have to sell it a little bit more to them? What was your pitch to them?
I think I think they understood the vision. And look, I've taken a bit of flack because publicly I've said that in a lot of ways I think that the podcasting business model is broken. I think that today most podcasters who make money are the very, very large podcasters. And so you have a very small like tip of the iceberg for people who are actually getting paid for this profession, and everybody else is not monetizing at all or monetizing only very small amounts. And that means that everybody has to fight to make hits in order to win. And if you don't make hits, you die, right? So for me, that means that that makes very high risk business models that are very likely to fail unless you can find those hits. It puts a lot of pressure on production costs because it means you have to try to secure big talent, or you have to like make, the next major audio drama that's going to be made into a film in order to get big enough audience, and huge marketing budgets in order to try and get people to listen to that content. Um, and if you don't win, then, all of a sudden your business goes under. And we've seen that happen with a lot of businesses in the podcasting space. And for the listener, I feel like it does them a disservice because there is an incredibly rich diversity of the kinds of content that people want to consume. But if everybody is only making hits for the masses, they neglect all of those really interesting micro communities and niches that I think are very worthy of having interesting content that services their needs. So we really focus on these micro communities and niches. We make a lot of what's called like edutainment kind of content. And sometimes on the audio side, we think of ourselves as like an audio version of Wikipedia or Reddit or Pinterest. And we're not chasing like big giant hits. We're producing a lot of shows and a lot of regular content that serves very small communities.
So you're targeting the long tail, whereas everybody else is chasing the hits, as you said. Um, I saw on your website that you're on average putting out 3,000 episodes per week. Is that still the accurate number? Has that gone up since? Um, is that around what you're
Yeah, it's
doing?
gone up. I think that's probably right. We have more than 5,000 active shows. So we're producing north of 3,000 episodes a week now. I mean, to date, I've done, I don't know, 220,000 podcast episodes, something like that. So it's a lot, certainly from a volume perspective. Um, but some of the audiences for some of these shows are very small. So, for example, I was just looking at our fishing reports. We do a lot of fishing reports where we'll do a daily fishing report on a small fishing hole in Michigan, right? And we might only get 30 people who listen to that show, but I mean, I think I have hundreds of fishing reports. So I'm then able to serve the people who are really interested in the fishing report for that little fishing hole that they're going to. They might be upset that now everybody is going to know that that's, the secret fishing hole, but they're feeling like their needs are being met. And particularly from an audio perspective, because more and more people are looking for ways to enjoy and consume content without having to be in front of a screen all the time.
So when you're saying you're going niche, you're going like really niche if you're serving people who have a certain fishing
Everything in
hole in
between.
Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah, everything in between. And for us, there's a lot of greenfield out there because, as I said previously, it would never make sense for, a real life human being to get up every morning and read 300 different fishing hole reports. Right? They would never be able to monetize it. They wouldn't, their time, their energy, right? It wouldn't make sense for them to be able to do that. But it's a very powerful utilization of this kind of tool that allows us to make these templated kind of approaches and then, automate and scale them.
And if we talk a little bit about how you technically do that, like, can you walk us through how the process looks like? Let's say for very niche communities like this one, where do you get the data that then is repurposed and turned into a podcast episode about a very specific fishing hole, let's say?
Yeah.
And to do that on a regular basis, I would imagine is a huge undertaking if you want to serve all those micro communities and not just very targeted ones. How do you go about that?
Yeah. Well, we have a creative team. So a lot of people, I think their assumption is like that we're just a bunch of robots over here, but we actually, half of our team is a creative team, and they spend most of their time versus actually like podcasting themselves into a mic or like, writing the scripts. They spend most of their time using these AI tools to the max to at first create different kinds of personalities. So they're literally like designing creators, podcast hosts or creators for social media. And they're figuring out like what that person's story is. So in the same way that like, Disney is creating the characters for their next animated film, and Electronics Arts is designing for their next, RPG game. Like we're crafting these characters and their stories and giving them, I mean, with a very thick, we call them personality Bibles of everything about this person, their flaws and weaknesses, their sense of humor, their families, everything. And then we kind of decide, what are the kinds of things that this person, just like you all think about all the time? Like if this person is going to be a content creator, what kinds of audiences are they going to want to reach? And what are the kinds of content that they're going to want to make? And in order to do a good job making that content, what kinds of information do they need on a regular basis in order to be able to do that? So we have built what we call an AI orchestration tool. So our platform allows us to be able to pull from multiple different LLMs and a bunch of different AI tools that are out there so that we can design with AI in every step of the process. Because the tool set and the LLMs and data sources that might make sense for like long form audio drama are very different than the tool sets that are going to make sense for like YouTube short beauty reels, right? It's like so you have to like figure out the exact right recipe for the exact right thing. And then once you get it right, then you're like, all right, that's dialed in, looks really good, audience is there, and we know what the desired expansion audience is. We're going to automate it. And so then we, turn it on, or maybe we'll start with like one or two different territories, and then we'll pull from a data source and be like, give me every fishing hole in America, or every, every city or every county that reports information about pollen count. And then we can make that thing that we designed and that my creative team worked on from the beginning and can blow it out. And then we use the data pipelines on the back end to inform how's it working? Is the audience resonating? What's the feedback that they're getting? And then we continue to customize it over time so that it gets better and better.
Wow. Okay. That seems very sophisticated and also interesting that you're continuously taking in the feedback from the audience. You're trying to improve and also iterate, just like a normal creator would, reading the comments
Yeah.
and trying
Yeah.
to take that into consideration. What have the comments been like on a whole? Is it, I'm sure it's both ends of the spectrum, but as a overarching impression, what do the people that listen to your AI generated content say as a comment?
Yeah, I mean, so the first piece of endorsement that we always look at is how are we reaching an audience of real people, right? We have what's called IAB certified downloads. So through a third party organization, these are real people. They're not bots. They're actually listening. They have to actually listen for a certain amount of time in order for it to count as a download for us. So we look and see what kind of engagement is it getting. And then we start to look and see like how are people engaging throughout the content. So just I'm sure the same way that you and your audience do, like on the podcasting side, what does listen through look like? On the video side, what does watch through look like? What does engagement look like? And we're using all of these things as pieces of data. And then we look at the rates and reviews or the comments and things to see like if we can get other specific feedback or anecdotal feedback, and then we use that to continue to hone our personalities and the stories that they're telling. um, the tenor of the feedback, I would say there are certainly people who don't like what we're doing. I would say like the criticism kind of falls into these five big buckets of like there's some people who just like, hate capitalism and hate the fact that, AI, its connection with the economy right now. There's people who are really anxious about AI, like Terminator scenarios, the AI taking over the world. But the most that are more specific to us and the kind of work that we're doing. There's concerns from creators about job displacement, um, and that I think is a legitimate concern that people have. I think the CEO of NVIDIA recently said that. Um, you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you will lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI. And I very much think that that's true. These are um, mind-blowingly powerful creative tools. And so if you're not learning how to use these tools and embracing them and they're becoming part of your creative process, then I think that you will find yourself displaced, and perhaps quickly. And from my perspective, this is that creators in particular have always been really exceptional at figuring out the next iteration of evolution of creative tooling, and this community will do that and do that well and will thrive. And in 10 years, the kinds of things that we're going to see made with AI are going to um, really today we cannot even conceptualize. um, the other couple of buckets, there's folks who are particularly concerned about whether or not this is good for humanity, like to blur the line between what is real and what is not real. Like, how do we have ethics and values in this space? How do we not repeat some of the problems that we see with social media and with other forms of technology? And that's something that we think about a lot and talk about a lot. And our position is that the ethical line really isn't AI versus human, it's about deception. Because brands and everything throughout history, people have used brand ambassadors and mascots and animated creators to represent them, right? So it really is a conversation about, are we being transparent and are we not trying to deceive? And so we take the position that we are AI transparent. We're telling people that we're transparent. People know that what they're listening to is AI generated content, or what they're seeing is an AI generated character. Um, and we're asking for them to enjoy it the same way that they would enjoy um, animated cartoons, right? We're not asking them to pretend that it's real.
Is it difficult when you produce content on such a large scale to avoid any kind of biases into one direction or another? I mean, certainly you're covering a lot of topics that are just neutral, I would say, but then you're also covering topics like politics, for example, and recent events. Um, I would imagine it's very difficult, consciously or unconsciously, to not have any sort of bias go into how the content then looks like in the end, and have that then extrapolated on a huge scale. Of course,
Yeah.
pretty much any creator nowadays has like some hot takes that they like to push out there, and that's also how they find their audience, right? By not being bland, by not being neutral about everything. That's not very fun to listen
Yeah.
to. Everybody likes to listen to something contrarian at some point, in one way or another. But to then have the power to have thousands or tens of thousands of AI creators at your disposal, um, takes the whole thing to another level, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, one of our findings early on was that people don't like perfect people. In fact, they kind of hate them. And so we needed to build into our characters all sorts of depth and perspective. So when we build our personalities, we give them um, opinions and backstories and life experiences that could influence them. So we program it intentionally, first of all. Second of all, like, I think every artist, you see a bit of them in everything that they create. And so I'm like, I can tell when I look through our personality slate, we now have more than 100 personalities that we have created. I am very, very good at guessing who on my team created that personality, because you can see the artist in the art. And I think that we're not trying to release, unless we say that we're doing it very specifically, or if it's just for educational purposes only, like reporting on a summary of health news or something. When we're trying to be totally, absolutely middle of the line or unbiased, um, there's always going to be some kind of perspective in there. And if you're denying that, then I think you're probably not being really honest with yourself. So we're we're okay with some level of that, and then we just try to be candid with our personalities about that background coming through.
And does that go into both directions? Doesn't even have to be politically, but I would imagine the people that you and your company is hiring, they tend to be from similar backgrounds. They tend to have similar levels of educations. They grew up similarly in similar areas. I would imagine that if you say you can tell who created which personality, they all tend to lean into a direction that is then on par with their own personal upbringings. Is there a way to counter that, or is that something that you just have to accept?
I don't know if that's totally true. I mean, so right now we're only 8 people. Our team is 8 people, and we build remotely. So, we have somebody from New York, somebody from North Carolina, somebody from Kentucky and California, and somebody in Spain. We work with freelancers that are in other countries. So I think we have a pretty good diverse representation of backgrounds on our team. Um, do we have like the full spectrum of diverse political opinions? I'm not sure I totally know. But we try, we're not like we're not like Fox News or a left-leaning news organization. Like we don't have a stance where we're drawing a line in the market that we're only making content for a particular target audience. Because we really do focus on this like edutainment kind of content. Um, it's very gen population, and more for us is trying to find the niches that are interested in that content, right? The people who love knitting or who love whiskey or you know cheese, all sorts of different things. Those people who we have a whole series of content on pirates. So it's less about one certain kind of background or upbringing, or I mean, we're producing all of our content in English to date, so it's certainly, I mean, obviously the English speaking audiences, but otherwise, like we have, when you're creating content across north of 5,000 shows, it's an incredibly diverse array of content. I mean, basically anything that anybody thinks of, we will make. On our team, anything that anybody thinks of, we'll try it.
When you choose the topics, do you think what areas are underserved, or do you think which areas or which topics might be the most profitable? Do you think about where the largest target audience is? Like, what is your process of actually figuring out where you place your content?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of those things. So we operate a little bit like a newsroom. We're pulling information from a bunch of different sources about what topics are trending and what are people saying to their smart speakers, and what all sorts of different what people are searching for in AI. And then we're also looking at what do we think are underserved content categories across audio or video or audio. We look at all sorts of things that come, in popular trends and in other content genres. So we look at all of those different things, and then it all kind of comes into a funnel. And many of those things we've already built templatized approaches to, so we can go ahead and automate it. Everything will go onto a list, and we'll make it. Um, or our team sits down and looks at the things and thinks, what are the things that we think are going to resonate, and what are the things that might have really good keywords or titling or catches that we think would drive audience. We don't think so much about like, what do we think this topic is going to make us a bunch of money. And that's only true because it's inexpensive for us to make the content. So for us, the overwhelming majority of the time, we will reach profitability on making that content with a very small audience listening to it. So there's no risk in needing to decide should we or should we not make it based on whether or not we think we're going to make money on it. And one of the things that we've found is that there's all sorts of things that people want and are interested in that would have been very difficult for a human to have predicted in advance that it's was going to do well. So usually our initial stack, this is public. You can see when we make a new show, we make a promo, a trailer, and 2 episodes. And it's kind of like enough for somebody to, on the audio side, to listen to it and to see, like, is this something that I'm going to like? And particularly if we look at the data of did they listen to 1 episode and then go to the next episode? Because that's a good, strong signal that, yeah, they're into it. Okay? And so once we start to see those strong signals, then we go back and automate it. And then it's like, then that feed can be making content and continuing to serve that audience. And we will hone it over time and we'll use the data to make it better over time. Um, but that signals to us that we've found an audience and it's worth leaning in.
And do you then publish on all the existing podcasting platforms? Are you on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, etc.? Do you focus on a few particularly? Do maybe some of those even have things implemented to restrict AI generated content, or can you just blast all of it out there?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of the major platforms have rules that if you're making AI generated content, you have to disclose to the audience that it's AI generated content. And so we are totally in compliance with those requests. But otherwise, we release to all of the major content platforms. And I think their perspective, which I think is totally right, is that um, you let the audience decide what the audience wants to consume. And if people are consuming our content, they like it. It's, quality shows. It's not, you know, being listened to by bots. There's no scam to try and make money here. Like we're making real content for real people to consume. Then they understand that they shouldn't be the ones who should decide what people want to listen to.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting how platforms will handle AI created content in the future, I think. I talk to quite a lot of people on this podcast who work with video generation, often in like TikTok or YouTube. Uh, but for some reason, those platforms seem to also embrace it so far. The question is, will that continue? Because it seems like there's more and more people who also get fed up with all the AI generated content that they're seeing in their feed. And even though the platforms are, of course, just interested in keeping you on the platform for as long as possible, I could imagine that they also at some point see too much pushback, and if people start dropping off, or if the time that they spend on the
Yeah.
platform gets less and less, they might implement some restrictions. Is that something that you worry about for your company? Because if that were to happen for podcasts, certainly that would be a major problem for your business model.
Yeah, I don't worry about it because we are definitely, above board. We're making quality content that I think people want to consume. We're not a slop factory, right? We're not just click a button and make it and whatever it is, shoot it out there. We have a thoughtful approach. We have a content team. We're, curating our topics. Um, so I think if there is some kind of regulation or throttling on these platforms of, true AI slop, I'm not worried about us getting caught up in that. Um, and, these platforms are really designed to help people engage with the content that they want. So I don't worry so much about like true slop junk videos getting so much engagement that they're in so many people's feeds that people are frustrated. I also am very confident because I see and live at this kind of edge of the newest AI technology all the time. I'm very confident that AI tooling built into these platforms will help with discoverability and surfacing to people the content that they want to see and want to consume, and even helping them to get more of the niche content that they want so that they're not always just seeing the same content that everybody else is seeing as if we're all, the exact same person.
Yeah, it seems like in terms of discoverability right now, that is actually a problem. And I mean, I noticed that as a avid podcast listener, that there's a lot of cross pollination between the big podcasts. They be go and be guests on one
Yeah.
another's podcast, when then you don't get to know about the smaller podcasts, right? For your content, is it a pure SEO play, or do you have other ways to have people discover your content besides just searching for whatever they might be interested in?
Yeah, we're doing of course, we're doing a lot of SEO. We have the advantage because we can create content so quickly that we are able to surf trends maybe in a better or different way than some of the existing content creators are when it takes them a significant amount of time to get out new content on certain topics. Excuse me, SEO certainly helps. We also do a very good job showing up in AI. So, as more and more people move to using these powerful answer engines to help them find the topics that they want to consume information about, I think we show up there. So, I guess people are now calling that generative engine optimization. Um, our content is in a lot of smart speakers. We do a very good job with smart speaker integrations. So, we're answering north of 100,000 smart speaker questions a month. Excuse me, I got a little itch in my throat.
No worries.
So I think there's a lot of different ways that people are finding our content, but we are also doing some cross promotion and episode drops within our own content. And now that we're on social, in YouTube and Instagram, we're of course promoting audio content there and vice versa.
So when you say cross promotion, does that mean that actually the one AI character is then as a guest on the podcast of the other AI character?
Well, we haven't done that yet, but we're about to. We're on the cusp of rolling out our real time personalities. So people will be able to engage directly with our personalities via voice, via text, live chat, shopping experiences, all of that. So we are in the process of bringing these characters to life real time. Uh, but yes, they will be able to go on other shows. So right now, what you see is a promo for another podcast on each other's podcasts. But eventually, they will be able to be guests. They'll come and be a guest on your show.
Looking forward to. I would love to have some of those
Yeah.
characters on. I actually looked up Nigel Thistledown, one of your main
Huh?
characters, according to the website. He hasn't posted in a while on Spotify. What's up with him?
I know. I'm gonna have to get new shows out for him. I'll have to go back and check. Is he not? Does he not have any new content out recently?
I
Yeah.
haven't found anything,
We're
but
we're definitely at the we're at if you can say an inflection point at inception point. As I said, we just closed our seed series financing. Um, and as you can imagine, managing a network of north of 5,000 shows and many different YouTube channels and Instagram profiles with a very small team, we have to finish building out our tech infrastructure to continue to be able to really scale. And now, thankfully, we have the resources to be able to do that. So we're hiring, if you know people, we're hiring content creators, audio creators, video creators, developers. So folks on the tech side and on the creator side.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where creators work in the future and how they work. Is that
Yeah.
in the vision that you have for the future, something that will be majorly important for creators to actually work with AI characters and be the voice behind them, or at least give input into those AI characters so they can then go and create content much more than they, as a sole creator, could ever do? Or will there be other ways to be a creator if you're competing with AI creators out there that are just able to produce so much more volume?
Yeah, I think your intuition is right, and I know your content tends to skew, the intersection of social and commerce, right? I mean, I think that as AI enters commerce, the winning interface will not be, a chatbot or a website or even a static character. It will be a personality that carries the brand's point of view, that comes with a consistent tone, with taste and, predictable judgment, and is brand safe, but over time can also be hyper personalized to that person that is engaging with the brand. And I think that that's what the future really of social commerce looks like, and what the future of brand representatives look like. And so for creators who are working in that side of the business, I definitely think that they need to become very familiar with these capabilities and really start thinking about designing AI personalities themselves, because I think that's the direction of where this is going.
What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on monetizing the characters that you're currently building out? Is this a pure content play, or are you then trying to, once you have the audience, once you have the reach and the following for some of these characters, where you actually have like a passionate, dedicated audience behind some of those, is then the idea to monetize them in the traditional content creator ways of like maybe building a community around them, maybe having affiliate links, maybe doing merch drops. Is all of that on the table, or are you going into one
sure.
specific direction? What are your ideas there?
Yeah, I mean, I think my hope is to be able to monetize these creators in the same way that traditional creators monetize today. And I'm a big believer in diversification of revenue streams. So, uh, we can, today we're doing advertising revenue, but premium and subscription content and licensing and, merch and um, even live events, I think are possible. So lots of different ways that we can see monetization of these characters, 360s, the same way that creators are monetizing today, and new ones that haven't even been invented yet.
Can you actually explain a little bit more how currently the monetization works? You said that you can basically break even or be profitable with very few downloads per episode just because of the sheer volume that you're pumping out. But how does that work? Like, because let's say I'm a very small podcaster, I get
Hmm.
relatively few listeners. I'm not able to monetize that no matter how many shows I would have that work the same way. Normally the way monetization works is that you have to reach a certain size in the audience, right? Specifically, let's say on YouTube, where you need to have at least 1,000 subscribers, at least 4,000 watch hours cumulative over the year. If you're having 10,000 channels with like 5 subscribers, that's not going to help you at all. So how does that look like for you, who is producing so many shows and so many episodes per week?
Yeah, I mean, most of the platforms, they look at us on a network wide level. So even if my single show, as my a single uh, local pulse or live music roundup for a small city isn't getting a ton of listens across either a branded collection of like live music updates, or across our network or sub network is getting the kind of volume that is compelling to them and lets us have today programmatic ad revenue. So we have ads running in our content, and that's primarily the way that we're monetizing today. We also think, if you look at our content, we'll see that we have affiliate links. So we're driving affiliate revenue. And we even have some of our creators who are selling products. Nigel Thistledown, as you mentioned, he quote unquote wrote a book, and it is for sale on Amazon. And people buy it. Obviously, it's curated by the creators here at Inception Point who wrote that book for him. But it's under the brand, the same way that a celebrity brand would be built.
It could be really interesting, I think, with the volume that you're having and the scale, to also explore all of these different monetization models and actually see what works best. Because the way I experience the creator economy is that everybody's trying to figure out how to best monetize their audience besides doing AdWords. And then it's more or less that they just go by their gut instinct, maybe something that they're having an inclination towards. Probably they're listening to other creators and what works well for them, but there's no one who has the data of like 10,000 creators and then looks at, okay, how do communities do versus affiliate links versus merch versus I don't know, your own product that you're curating for your audience. It would be very interesting to have all of that data
Yeah.
aggregated and then see what actually works best.
It's like you work here already. Yeah, those are exactly the kinds of things that we look at.
Yeah, fascinating. Do you plan to make that in some shape or form available to the creative industry, to other podcasters who might benefit from such insights? Or is that something that you
Hmm.
see as your advantage? Clearly, you're working towards having that kind of insight. Is that something that you want to hold close to your chest, or are you going to put it out there to some extent at least?
To be honest, I'm not sure I've had the time even yet to think about it. As you can imagine, we're very much in startup mode. It's a hard sprint, and we're only 8 people, so we're all working hard all day, every day. So I've not sat back and thought about would I do that in the future. But even at Simplecast, my previous company, we were we found a lot of we got a lot of brand goodwill and a lot of resonance with the community by finding ways to release our data and insights in an aggregated way to um, benefit the community as a whole. So that's a strategy that has worked well for me in the past and one I would consider in the future for sure.
Okay, that's good to hear. As a fellow
Yeah.
podcaster, I'm looking forward to those insights. Um, I would
Yeah.
imagine,
I
though,
mean,
that
and I guess if somebody has a particular idea, or if they're like, there's this thing that you probably have data on that would be so helpful for our industry or something, I don't know, reach out to me and like we'll talk about, maybe we can do like a joint industry report on it or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
You
I'll
know?
take you up on that.
Yeah.
I would imagine, though, that there
There was a
are.
lot of we
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, at Simplecast, somebody came to us with this idea of like they wanted to find out there was this thesis that women podcasters were monetizing at rates lower than men podcasters. And so we partnered with them and did some research on it and ended up releasing a report on some of our findings about, was that true, and why, if so, why was that? What were the things that they could address? And it was a really fun and interesting project.
I wonder how much of the data that you would be able to gather over time from your podcasts would then actually be possible um, to compare to the real live creators, because as an audience of podcasts and as someone who avidly listens to them, um, I do feel like I relate to the person behind the content, obviously, and I also resonate with the backstory of the person, right? Like if I listen to Andrew Huberman and he's talking about, I don't know, some supplement that he's taking, I listen to him also because he is a neuroscientist. He is a professor. He's worked decades and decades in academia, so I assume that he knows what he's talking about. Whereas if an AI generated character would try to sell me something or do some affiliate play, I would probably be more hesitant, simply because I know that this is something that was programmed and not something that was developed through real life experience.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think that might be your intuition, but I doubt that that's actually true in the market. I mean, look at how much people buy something because it has Harry Potter on it, or because it has a Disney princess on it, or even there's all sorts of cases where you have a celebrity who is a brand ambassador for a brand. So people are able to disassociate, knowing that that thing is so authentic and authentically connected to the actual thing that it's talking about or selling. I don't know. I think people are more rational and reasonable than that. Like they're able to suspend their belief when they want to and not when they don't want to. People have accepted in all sorts of different genres that artificial characters, whether they're animated characters, whether they're, I don't know, reality TV shows, like is that real? Is
Fair
any of it
point.
real? Like we still watch it, we consume it, we like it, they sell us things. I mean, we we don't um we don't need all of the characters that we engage with to be as authentic as you describe Huberman to be.
Yeah, I think people also feel differently about podcasts, in my opinion, and the way I experience it. I don't see a lot of pushback as of now on other AI generated content. Obviously, uh, both on X or on LinkedIn, most of the posts are, at least to some extent, written by ChatGPT these days. You have a lot of video content out there that is pure AI slop, and people still find it entertaining. Whereas with podcast, my experience is that there's a lot of pushback for AI generated content there. And I wonder what your take on that is, why that might be. My take is
Yeah.
that probably it's because people have such an intimate experience with listening to a podcast while doing the dishes or driving in their car or cleaning, whatever it may be. Like you're willing to listen to someone speak into your ear through your AirPods for possibly hours. It feels very intimate. And my take is that probably that's why people are very reluctant when it comes to listening to AI generated content.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pointing to what is this like ongoing debate in the podcasting space right now, and some people I would describe as like the podcast traditionalists, and some people like myself are the podcast expansionists. I think when people think of a podcast today, certainly the traditionalists, they think of like you and I are doing, two people talking into a mic having a conversation, or they think of um, true crime, usually like long form storytelling. So I think that that is sad. I think that it's incredibly limiting for this beautiful medium. And I think one of the most exciting things about the advances that we've had in technology, headset technology, and Wi-Fi, and CarPlay, and and smart speakers, and your smart television is the ability to let the audience pick how and when they want to consume content and what content they want to consume. This like um, audio renaissance, allowing people to be able to consume whatever kind of content they want in audio format so that they don't have to spend as much time in front of a screen. And so I do everything from snackable content, which is like your 2 minute, daily update on what the skiing report in Mammoth is for this weekend, to very long form, audiobook kind of content. And, and I do things that, people will listen to sporadically or things that people listen to regularly. Um, we do very little like of the talking head kind of podcast content. We will do some true crime like content or the long form audio storytelling content. But for me, I think it's been really fun to experiment with all of the different ways that I can expand what the definition of a podcast is. So a lot of people don't realize, as I said, we're answering more than 100,000 smart speaker questions a month. So a lot of people will ask their smart speaker, "Tell me what the ski report is in Mammoth for the weekend," and the answer that they're getting back could be our Mammoth Ski Report podcast. And so people don't realize, like, oh, I'm listening to a podcast right now. Like,
Mm.
and many podcast traditionalists are like, I think rigidly stuck in like a podcast should be listened to on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or, your podcast player, and people should know that they're listening to a podcast. I think video first podcasting is busting open that definition. People want to be able to, I've talked about this before where it's like, if I go, like you described, if I go for a walk in the morning, I want to be able to listen on my AirPods. If I'm, at home while I'm making breakfast, I want it to be on my smart speaker. And then maybe I want it on my TV. And then if I'm in a commute, I want it on my CarPlay. And then when I get to work, I want it on YouTube in the background while I'm working on so I want it to be able to float in and out with me throughout the day. And I want to be able to enjoy it video first if I want to, and audio first if I want to. So it becomes less about me being like, I make an audio RSS feed delivered podcast, and that's what a podcast is, and more about what does my audience want and how do they want to consume the content. And whatever that is, that I will deliver to them. And if we're going to call it a podcast, or if we're not comfortable calling it a podcast anymore, I'm okay with that because I'm just delivering what my customers want.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult for creators when there's a shift in how the medium itself looks or functions. And I mean, we're constantly experiencing that, and that's not going to stop either. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time now with AI generated
Yeah.
content. Same happened with YouTube, obviously, when TikTok came around and people were like, oh my God, this is terrible. And it's so bad for your attention span. And I look back to the 10-minute YouTube videos and I'm like, oh my God, this is so long. Now everybody's attention span is like
Yeah.
2 seconds and it's all vertical format. So it just evolved, right? And it's not helping anyone to
Yeah.
push back on it and be a purist and say, okay, this is not what you can say this is something that I don't want to take part in, but that's not going to change the fact that other people will and that there's an audience for it. So I do agree with you that there's always going to be people who are willing to broaden the definition of what content looks like. And clearly you are doing that
Yeah.
for the podcast space.
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of empathy for creators. There has been a lot of change over the last 10 years. There's going to be a lot of change in the next 10 years. I would just reiterate that I believe that storytelling and point of view is what creates demand and what creates audience, not the tooling or even the platform, right? And AI doesn't threaten or change that. In fact, it could amplify that, could make it you know, uh, easier to find the audiences that you want to speak to on the topics you want to speak about.
Do you think we're the last generation that finds it weird to follow an AI avatar, follow AI creators, and actually us having this discussion and also quite some people having very extreme opinions on maybe what your company is doing? Do you think that's something that 5 years or 10 years from now people will look back at and say, how was that even a question? Like, clearly we're going to evolve into that direction. It's like people who are still using a typewriter when Windows has been around for 10 years. Is that something that you think the future will hold for us all, where we're all going to have our array of AI avatars that we like to follow and listen to daily? And it's not even a question that everyone does that.
I mean, 100%. And I think the generations below us are already living in that future. I mean, I tell this funny story about how I have three young kids. One of my sons lost a tooth, and I was so proud of myself going to the bank to get like a crisp $2 bill because I felt like that was going to be so special for him to wake up with a $2 bill under his pillow. And so we woke up and he saw the $2 bill and he's like, yeah, this is cool, but do you think that I could turn this in for Robux? It's like he already lives in a digital world, not in the real world where a $2 bill matters. So the Italian brain rot will be one of the biggest franchises. I mean, they have grown up on uh, animated characters, on video game characters, on in this hybrid real and artificial world since they were born. And so there's not a leap for them to adopt and engage with AI generated characters. I mean, like I said, I think websites and chatbots are quickly going to be a thing of the past, and the way that people will engage, with brands, with health providers, with doctors. Everything is going to be through first a human like digital representation of an AI interface.
What do the next 5 years look like then for you specifically at Inception Point AI? What are your goals? What does your roadmap look like? What do you want to bring into the industry and into this new era of AI avatars and characters in the next 5 years?
Yeah. Well, we're really excited about making a lot of AI personalities and doing a lot of experimentation and reaching a lot of people on a lot of topics that have not really previously been covered. So, really excited about that mission. Our North Star metric is engagement, the same way that like a YouTube or a Netflix would be. So, we're wanting to find big audience that likes to engage with our characters. And then on the back end, from a tech perspective, that requires a lot of really um, cutting edge technological innovation because I need to be able to build the tools to manage and maintain these characters in the wild at scale and for them to be able to create their own content, but within my guardrails. So moving more and more towards uh, these personalities having autonomy to create content.
And what are your biggest challenges? Is it the technology that is still holding you back and where you're waiting for new advancements and things that help you to scale even further and make even better content? Or are there other limitations that you're currently facing?
I mean, I need to hire really good people, so that's like the thing that just keeping me up at night right now. Um, the other challenges, I think, for every startup company out there right now, if you're not anxious about keeping up with the pace of innovation of AI, then you're probably not paying close enough attention. I mean, just the speed at which AI is developing and staying on top of all of the latest capabilities and the tools and making sure that you continue to stay at the forefront is uh, is a really intense sprint.
Yeah, if even someone like you is saying that, how can anyone else try to even keep up with it? I mean, I'm trying my best, but it's impossible. It's so much every single day. And even the tools that you feel like you have mastered are constantly evolving and improving. Um, yeah, I don't know if anyone out there really feels competent in AI right now, because if you do, 2 weeks from now, you're probably not up to date anymore.
It is. It's interesting that you say that. Maybe maybe we should write about it on LinkedIn or something. And amongst all of the LinkedIn slop is like it is kind of an imposter syndrome equalizer because like nobody can be an expert. Right?
I agree.
Everybody has to be. Everybody is a day behind, whether they admit to it or not. You know.
Yeah, and depending on where you choose to spend your time, you might find yourself in a bubble where everybody pretends to not be behind but ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
Yeah.
a thin line to walk.
Yeah.
But
For sure. Yeah.
Jeanine, really appreciate you coming on and talking us through the future of podcasting. For me personally, it really opened my eyes to some ways that you are serving the podcast audiences out there and the podcast communities in ways that currently are just not being met. Know that there's a pushback to what you're doing from some people in the industry, but I agree with you that there are certain areas and very niche communities that are not being served the way they probably should be. And it's good that there's somebody out there and a company that is trying to solve that for everyone. So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, and we'll keep you updated, and maybe someday one of my personalities will come on your show.
I would have them on in a heartbeat.